Hey guys, welcome to another video. This time we're going to talk about how to make a Moire effect in Nuke. And I think I'm pronouncing it right, but there's some different sources out there when you Google it that kind of pronounce it differently. But according to Wikipedia, it's Moire. So this is how it's pronounced in French. So hopefully that's right. But basically this effect is, basically two intersecting lines, and it creates this sort of pattern. And you see this kind of effect if you're walking, maybe behind some kind of chain link fences and they're overlapping. You also see it looking at like LED screens if you're filming it. So you may have seen something like this before. And so this effect is really useful, especially for the screens, because you can make like really old looking screens and all those type of effects. And there's shows and stuff like that have done prominent effects. So if you look at something like WandaVision, you can look at the big wall they did, and you're seeing this this effect being warped in there. And actually, it's a pretty straightforward effect. It's not that hard to create. So that's what this video is about. And yeah, we'll get into it. So basically, this effect really just consists of making two sine waves and intersecting them and kind of rotating them. So it's actually very simple. And the way you can do this is use an expression node. And you can just do the expression. You can do it in the alpha channel or the color channels. You could just do sine x, and then you're going to get this like sort of sine wave across, horizontally across your screen. If you want to make those lines bigger, you can divide it by a number. So you can divide it by, like, let's say 10, and you'll see that the lines get thicker. So basically you want to create that pattern, and I left the lines really thin because this effect is more prominent when there's a lot of intersecting lines. So basically I created a node that kind of just does this automatically, so I don't have to type expressions, because I use these lines pretty frequently when I'm doing like patterns and stuff like that. So I find this useful. And the other thing you want to do, the other node I found here, this is off Nukepedia, so I'll just attach these two in a Nuke script if you guys want them. But this is an offset node, so basically just makes it easy to, if you have like a checkerboard, and if you move it, like for example, if I move this horizontally, wherever or however far I move it off this side of the screen, it will reappear over here. So basically if I offset it, you'll see as I shift it, it's coming back on this side of the screen. So that's all it does. And that just makes it easier for this effect. So basically what you want to do is, after we have one line, we want to do another one, just a copy of it. And I just offset it by 20 pixels. So I just basically transform in X 20 pixels. And so we just want to kind of misalign those lines a little bit. And then what we can do is also rotate it. So the rotation is actually mainly where this effect is coming from. So if you rotate one of the lines and you mask the other one, you'll start to see this sort of interference pattern happening. So if we kind of turn it back to 0, just to show you guys. So we have 0, nothing's really happening. A little bit's happening because this might be not completely over each other, but really the rotation is causing this effect. So you see immediately starts to happen as soon as we add that rotation. And so that's pretty cool. But one way we can make this more interesting is to actually do a little bit of a grid warp, and you'll get more of those like kind of organic Moire effects in there. So you can add some slight warps to one of the patterns. So if I turn on the grid warp, you'll see that we can actually get these like circular patterns in here. And that's pretty cool because you can kind of, animate this in a way that, maybe if you're doing some kind of really cool effect where like an arm is coming through a screen or someone's passing through a surface, you could kind of warp these patterns around that object that's like passing through. Or if you're doing some kind of zoom in and you're doing some kind of matrix type of thing, you could play with the distortion and sort of drive it that way. Another way you could kind of drive the distortion would be just using a UV pattern and then kind of ST mapping it on. And what you can do is do a roto paint. So again, there's a tutorial out there on my channel about UVs already. So if I go to the roto paint, you can go to, where is it here? The smear, and we can just make that bigger, and then I can just kind of draw, and you'll see that that pattern kind of gets distorted. And what's nice about doing it that way is you can actually animate that stroke. So if you go into the roto paint, go to the stroke tab, you can kind of animate that thing. So you could do some kind of crazy animation passing through there. So that's just another way to do it. But we've already got the pattern working here. If you want to make it look more like a television screen and add those rainbow colors, it's really just the same technique we used multiple times in different tutorials on this channel already, which is how to make a rainbow. So there's a video called How to Make a Rainbow in Nuke, which basically I'll cover in about 5 seconds here, but you can find the full video. Just basically going linear to HSV, doing this in the shuffle node, and converting it back. And that's going to make a rainbow automatically. But if you apply that directly to the pattern, and basically before that, I've just shuffled out the alpha into all the channels. So all the color channels, red, green, blue, alpha, they all match this. So you can see I've just done this into all the channels. But if you apply this directly, it doesn't look that great. It's kind of, you know, I mean, there's like rainbow in there, but it's not rolling into the highlights in the way that we would like. So what you can do is simply blur your picture. So you're kind of averaging it so that the ridges are like the whitest part, and then the kind of troughs, I guess, are like the darkest. And then you convert it into this rainbow space. So now your lines, instead of looking something like this, which isn't that useful, it looks more like this. And you can take that pattern and multiply it against the original. So here's our original, here's a little rainbow blurred version we did, and then we just multiply it against it. And now if we hit play, we have this sort of like television moire effect that's kind of animated. So hopefully that is useful, and you know, you can mix that in and use it as kind of a render pass, or something you mix in your composite if you're doing these type of effects. And that's a pretty quick and simple way to do it. There might be other ways to do it out there, and definitely play around with it. I'll also attach the links there if you want to read more about this effect, like more of the science behind it. But yeah, hopefully that's useful.